welcome. And if you would like some online coaching from a friendly face, starting from as low as $169, my details are in the description. So today we're going to talk about one of the biggest challenges in archery, and that is target panic. And more precisely, we're going to talk about how do you know if you have it. And as always, I'm pleased to say I'm joined here by Coach Morgan. Hello, Ash.
Hi Mike, how are you doing? I think this will
I'm
be
very good.
interesting.
Yeah, because it is a challenging topic, and I know more than anything else, it can just suck the fun out of archery. And when a survey was done in one of the big archery associations, the number one cause of people quitting archery was target panic or not knowing how to progress with it. So let's jump straight into it. Right, what would I say? So we're trying to, first of all, what is target panic? How do you know if you got it? So broadly speaking, I would say the sort of textbook definition would be anticipating when the shot is going to go, the activation of the shot. Would you say I've covered that there, Ash? Is that think of something more concise?
No, I think this is really interesting
What?
because the way I look at target panic is I guess a little bit different but than most people, but I see it as a technical problem more than maybe a mental problem. And on the technique side of things, so I think this will be a really interesting kind of discussion because on the technique side of things, I would definitely agree that it's that anticipation of the shot and
Yeah,
not
or
having the
apprehension
process.
or cautiousness or
Yeah.
you could label it down as the fear of shooting because your brain doesn't want to see what the outcome of that shot will be. So you have all of that built into it. But you're coming at it from a different angle, which is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think maybe we can get into that a little bit later, kind of the why I think it's more of like a technique kind of thing rather than just a mental. But I think maybe there's some difference as well between compound and recurve, because obviously I don't really know anything about compound. So yeah, I think that would be a bit rich for me to say that what I say applies to compound. So yeah, that will be interesting.
So if we take it on the most sort of surface level, when as a coach do I first start to, because often I find that people have target panic and they have no idea. They know they have a problem. They know their shooting is not going as they want, but they don't really necessarily know what it is. Broadly speaking, as a coach, what I'm looking for is your shot to always look the same. And that doesn't mean you're going to have a perfect, consistent technique every shot. You know, none of us are superhuman. But what I mean is whether you're shooting at a blank target at 5 meters, or whether you're shooting at a target all the way down at 100 yards doing a York, your shot should look the same because we're trying to execute the same. The only thing that's different is what you're aiming at. And typically speaking, with anyone with target panic, a classic symptom is I can put them on a blank target and they look great. They have consistent timing. They can come through the shot nice and smooth. They can squeeze the trigger nice and smooth. But then when I put them in front of a target face, and generally speaking, the smaller that target face is, the further that target face is, the more pressure they're under if they're in a competition. That's when I see the movements break down, the clean, smooth shot break down because there's that fear of the outcome. So it's not a fear of shooting the arrow, it's the fear of that your brain knows once you shoot the arrow, the outcome could be a negative feeling, so your brain doesn't want to shoot the shot because then you might have a negative feeling from where the arrow went. You with
Yeah.
me on that, Ash?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's more
Is
the
that
fear of the outcome of the process rather than like focusing on the process.
yeah. Yeah. So the brain is trying to stop you shooting the shot because it doesn't want to get the pain of seeing that the arrow was not in the middle. That's my you can disagree. So that's the most classic thing. Your shot doesn't look the same. And you might know that it doesn't feel the same either. You might be able to appreciate that maybe when you're shooting blank boss, you can shoot 12 arrows in a row, nice and smoothly, empty your whole quiver. But when you go onto a target, you come up, maybe you can't pull through, you come down, you come up, you come down, or with a compound, you just shoot too quickly, which is classic. Classic is with target panic, the classic is that a recurve will shoot too slowly and a compound will shoot too quickly.
I didn't realize that with shooting quickly for compound. Yeah.
Generally, that's the way it goes. Yes, there's always going to be exceptions, but most compound archers with target panic will just shoot too quick. The sight will come onto the target, and even though it's in the blue, you'll press the button because you're just on a short trot. With a recurve, you'll get to the point where maybe you can't aim at the middle, but you're not able to pull through. So not being able to aim at something, that's another classic sign of target panic. Now, it doesn't mean, of course, not aiming very steady. Of course, anyone can have that issue with poor technique or poor muscle control, but it's when you physically can't put the sight on the middle. So often I've had athletes say to me, oh, my sight is just stuck at 6 o'clock in the blue or the black and I just can't lift it up. And they think it's a stabilizer issue. They think it's a balance issue. And that's when we have to sit down, have a cup of coffee and have a chat because it's got nothing to do with the bow.
Yeah. Interesting. So if you're looking at a compound archer, maybe shooting on the line, that kind of thing, what things would you look for to kind of diagnose, I guess, the target panic?
Classic thing is elbow. Is back tension being maintained, or is there the flinches, the collapses in there? That's the classic. I mean, if I can see their thumb, I normally get if I use a video camera with a great zoom, I just zoom in on the thumb. If I want to see how an athlete is shooting, if I've got a new online student, say close up of the thumb and the hand normally gives me the best insight into what process is going on. Because if it's a nice smooth surprise shot, there's no sudden movements. Everything is just a gradual build up of pressure, movement, and then boop, the shot's gone. Whereas if I see any of this little movements, anything that's not smooth, alarm bells. If I see the elbow, instead of the elbow just slowly moving back, if I see any, because typically speaking, their sight will go across the middle. They'll think, oh, I might shoot now. Do I shoot now? And every time they think about shooting, the brain goes, oh, if we're going to shoot, we don't need to push and pull anymore. We can stop that. And that's when then the sight goes off the middle, then they go back on, and then the brain wants to, those little, they're like little tiny micro collapses, micro relaxers, because the brain is thinking, oh, we're about to shoot. And when we shoot, we don't have to keep pulling. The brain is just far too clever.
And I brought this up because I wanted to, we agreed to kind of show this video before we started recording today. But I think this really demonstrates exactly what you were just saying, right? So I'll just let this play. And what you just mentioned about the elbow, I think is what people want to watch on Jorge Jimenez here. This kind of collapsing. There was a lot of movement of his.
You see, he's actually folding in. He's folding in. Now we want to first of all say we got great respect for him because he's a multi-World Cup winner. Yeah. But I think even him would say his technique was extremely out there. He was out in a category on his own because most people who display these symptoms never make it onto their national team, let alone make it into finals of World Cups. So he is a phenomenal archer who must have had staggering mental control to deal with these little collapses and still deliver world-class results. But he is a classic example of, and then we've got a classic example of Braden here with a great surprise, smooth shot. Here's a textbook example of what I try and teach. And without being, with all greatest respects, Jorge is a classic example of the type of shooting I get with a lot of students coming in looking for a solution. Because most people, when they have these symptoms, they do not shoot world-class scores. They then normally start to go down rapidly. But Jorge, he didn't just shoot like this for one season. He had a very long and successful career. I'd say he had five years or more as a top world-class contender. But he was famous for flinching. He was famous for looking like he's just shot a terrible shot, and he takes out the X. I don't know any coach in the world who would ever try and teach someone to shoot like this. But he ended up shooting this way. He ended up with masterful control of it. So even though you can see he has target panic, he has these flinches, he was still able to deliver the results. And most people end up where they can't even aim at the target face.
Because to me here, with Jorge, when we compare the two, obviously the release is different and maybe we'll get onto that. But to me, it looks like Jorge is basically collapsing from the draw elbow on each shot and kind of triggering the
Yeah.
trigger with his finger, essentially. So if we watch
All
this
all
here,
of those observations are 100% correct, Ash.
and then we look at Braden. I mean, this shot from the back, Braden in a second really shows the elbow and really nicely. And to me, this looks like textbook. Same with recurve, what you would want. That elbow just squeezing around and continuing. And that's what you mentioned about the back tension
Yeah.
earlier, right?
He has textbook, world-class execution, exactly as I'd want to see from my athletes.
Yeah.
He was, again, and that's why he's been a world-class contender for, I want to say, maybe even decades now.
Yeah. And can we just appreciate also the is that an 8x 120 for the final there? That's pretty cool.
It's staggering shooting, yeah. And
Yeah.
he's a world-class, but they're two, it's like, yeah, two people from totally different ends of the spectrum. One is absolutely on the world-class end of what you'd want to teach. Honestly, I'd say textbook perfect. And the other one has issues that normally destroy a career, but he was able to, he must be incredibly mentally tough because he was able to deliver results even with all those symptoms and flinches. He would flinch so much sometimes his elbow would come right forward and then he just comes right back and boom, he'd shoot an X. And you're just like, when you're shooting
I've
against
seen
him,
a couple like that actually. Yeah. Full
yeah,
collapse and almost coming off the peak, coming off full draw position, and then he
so
kind of falls
absolutely.
back.
And
Yeah.
then he shoots an X with it. And when I had teammates shooting against him, it was like, how can, because you just thought he was going to miss the target and you get your hopes up and then he whops it in the X. So that's an extreme case. And I want to be clear, most people who have those symptoms, it destroys their shooting. It destroys their career. He's an exceptional person with an exceptional mind control. So much so, how good would he have been? I just wonder, it's got such a good mental control. If you could have taught him great execution and surprise shooting, I wonder if he would have been even better. But, maybe a multi-World Cup winner is enough. Thank you for watching part 1. Part 2 is already uploaded and available to watch here. If you could subscribe before you go, it'd be much appreciated. Over 50% of you watch my videos and you haven't subscribed. It would really help me if you could.